I thought about it for about
Well, you-
5 days.
You just did that.
I was ready.
But
Becca was telling her how.
Call to order the December meeting of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good morning to everyone. Thank you to everyone who is joining us in the boardroom today and via live stream as well. Let's turn right into our business. Our first item is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Next, we will hear the report from Interim President Ettinger. President Ettinger.
Thank you so much, Chair Mayron. You know, the fall semester has really sped by, probably faster than I could have imagined. It seemed like new student convocation was really not that long ago, yet those new students are now days away from having a full semester under their belts. This fall, however, for our campus communities has not been without challenges, and I would like to briefly address the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Seeing the images of human suffering is deeply saddening for all of us, and we are acutely aware of the toll it is taking on some members of our University of Minnesota campus communities. I've held several listening sessions with students, faculty, and alumni, along with others from my team, and I've taken the opportunity to reiterate that the university needs to remain a place where people can express their opinions. The Board of Regents policy on academic freedom and responsibility states that academic freedom includes the freedom to speak or write on matters of public concern, and that academic responsibility includes the candor to make it clear that when one is speaking on matters of public interest, one is not speaking for the institution. The administration has been working with individual faculty and departments to ensure that we uphold this policy, and with the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee of the Faculty Senate to consider how to provide guidance for members of our university community when it comes to statements. At the same time, we are focused on providing a safe and supportive environment for everyone on all of our campuses. We strongly encourage all members of our community, if they encounter any instances of bias or discrimination, to bring them to our attention through the Bias Response and Referral Network, and if necessary, by contacting law enforcement. Despite these global challenges, we do continue to hear affirmations of success and progress on our campuses. The Duluth and Rochester campuses had their highest four-year graduation rates ever recorded, and the Twin Cities campuses were...
Members of the audience, members of the... Members of the audience, we have heard your message. Thank you. We have heard your message. Thank you. We will take a short recess. So I ask all of you to join me in the back.
Countdown again.
Okay. We're just waiting for the live stream to begin, and then we will resume the meeting.
All right.
All right. President Ettinger.
Well, I guess I just had another listening session. The Twin Cities campus has recorded the second highest four-year and highest six-year graduation rate of all time. That four-year rate has more than doubled in the last 20 years. The university's position as one of the world's outstanding institutions was reaffirmed recently with the publication of the Shanghai Rankings 2023 Global Rankings of Academic Subjects. In 8 subjects, the U of M ranked in the top 25 globally, including ecology. It was ranked 3rd in the world, and library and information sciences number 4. Overall, the University of Minnesota was number 10 in terms of U.S. public universities in that ranking. And the Twin Cities campus achieved its highest national universities ranking ever, according to U.S. News and World Report, and continues to rank in the top 25 of public national universities. I'm continually impressed by the strength of this university, the expertise and resolve of our faculty and staff, and the resilience of our students, and I'm equally proud of what the U of M does for the Minnesota and the world. I'm going to move on now to some other updates. As you know, we were notified just before the Thanksgiving holiday that Fairview was electing not to renew our current agreement, which runs through the end of 2026. We have previously said, as has Fairview, that our current agreement needs to change for the future. With Fairview having given its notice, a reciprocal notice serves to confirm our commitment to engage with Fairview on refashioning our relationship for the future, and you'll hear a report out from the committee about that notice. In addition, on Wednesday of this week, we issued a joint statement with Fairview confirming that we will continue to work together toward a reimagined partnership and offering some shared requests to the task force. While there's much detail to iron out in our ongoing conversations with Fairview, we agree that the Governor's Task Force on Academic Health presents a unique opportunity and some urgency to define our future relationship together and at the same time consider opportunities for the state to support academic medicine. At this week's task force meeting, Senior Vice President Franz outlined the university's case for state consideration, which included near-term, medium-term, and longer-term initiatives. Importantly, the initiatives address stabilizing the finances and facilities of the University Medical Center, enhancing healthcare workforce development, and planning for a next-generation academic medical center that supports the health and well-being of patients for years to come. I had a chance to share some thoughts about this new medical center with the task force when I appeared last month, and I wanted to share those briefly with the full board here today as well. I mentioned that as a business person, I sometimes am skeptical about the need for new when people say, okay, we need new facilities. But after touring our facilities and learning from Dr. Tolar and the health sciences deans, there are clear challenges that need our careful attention. Our University of Minnesota physicians and other mHealth Fairview medical professionals are offering patients outstanding care, but they're working in outdated facilities. Space is extremely tight, sometimes with patient crowding that does not promote privacy, recovery, and health. There is a frequent need to turn patients away, which is particularly troubling when it involves important medical referrals or procedures where we have demonstrated expertise. And there is operational inefficiency, including when patients and staff must go back and forth across the river to our current facilities. Frankly, we think it's the wrong approach for Minnesota to support world-class teaching, research, and care, which are all core to our mission and service to the state in these aging and outdated facilities. The university already owns an on-campus site for a potential new medical center facility right next door to our innovative clinics and surgery center on the East Bank. Our vision is to collaborate with those across Minnesota's healthcare community to ensure that the future of academic health and its facilities is recognized in this design. The university would be involved in the planning and the scope of the function of this new center in collaboration with these other stakeholders. Our government relations work has already ramped up, even 2 months prior to the start of the Minnesota legislative session. This year, as you know, our state capital request is focused exclusively on funding for HEPR, The requested funding of $500 million would allow the renewal of more than 150 buildings to support education, research, and outreach across the state of Minnesota. We've hosted bonding tours on several of our campuses for the Minnesota Senate and House, as well as a bonding tour for the Minnesota Management and Budget Office. On November 21st, I was part of a team that introduced our 2024 state capital investment request to the governor's executive budget team. We are also advancing our fiscal year 2025 supplemental budget request of $45 million in recurring operational funds to help address a portion of the expected cost increases and to keep costs lower for students by minimizing tuition increases. At the initial hearing on this request, which was held at the Capitol and chaired by Representative Gene Pawlowski, Vice President Julie Tonneson and I were the principal presenters for the University of Minnesota, with the help of UMPD Chief Matt Clark, Faculty Liaison Donna Spanis-Martin, and Twin Cities Undergraduate Student Government President Shashank Murali. The 2-hour session included questions from legislators on a wide array of topics. Last month, I had the opportunity to visit the Duluth campus again and participate in community listening sessions regarding the search for their next chancellor. Over the course of the day, search committee co-chairs Lori Charles, who is here today and is the chancellor of our Rochester campus, and Lisa Irwin, who is UMD's vice chancellor for student life, led an exceptional series of conversations with students, faculty, staff, and community members about the desired attributes of their next leader. The feedback we received informed the position profile, which is now live on the search website. Our consultants have begun advertising the position widely and are actively recruiting candidates. I'd like to talk briefly about 2 information technology initiatives. In fiscal year 2020, the Office of Internal Audit and the Office of Information Technology undertook a collaborative assessment to assess risks and mitigation strategies related to access to data and digital platforms. Part of that assessment identified issues with consistently removing access to university systems and resources after students, faculty, and staff have left the university. These findings resulted in a charge to OIT's Identity and Access Management Service to evaluate the need to adjust our practice. After an extensive analysis, OIT recommended the university discontinue its practice of providing email accounts to its alumni and retirees. Earlier this year, we announced our proposed changes to email and Google Workspace offerings. I'll reiterate that the decision was based on reducing data security risk, enhancing data privacy, and avoiding increased costs for data storage. Robust consultation took place with governance groups, IT leaders, deans, the Retiree Association, UMAA, and OHR, among others. This important step saves cost and enhances our cybersecurity posture, and although we recognize it may cause some inconvenience, OIT is moving forward with discontinuing email accounts for alumni and retirees. The university has begun to notify individuals just this week, and they will have a 1-year transition period, along with the opportunity to opt in to an alumni domain email account. OIT's comprehensive communication plans will include monthly reminders to these individuals and then 30-day, 14-day, 7-day, 1-day to make sure people just don't suddenly lose their email access if that's the account they've been using. Separately, I've also been having conversations with key leaders about comprehensively reviewing our data retention policies and considering how we may strengthen them if needed. The university is certainly committed to minimizing risk and following best practices in data collection and retention. To this end, the Office of Internal Audit has informed me that they plan to conduct a review of the management of personal identifiable information in central repositories and in associated systems after the initial investigation is complete. I was in Morris in late October to participate in a wonderful event, the inauguration of Janet Schrunk Erickson as the 7th chancellor of the Morris campus. Chancellor Erickson has a deep connection to the Morris community and campus. She's a valued thought partner to me, to her fellow chancellors, fellow faculty members, Morris campus leadership, students, you name it, basically in the Morris area. And the Morris campus is headed toward a bright future under the leadership of Chancellor Erickson. I had my first meeting with Minnesota tribal leaders recently. We had good conversations about resources and the new modules of the Gopher Equity Project, as well as the new website for Native American Affairs. We also discussed how we are reviewing the Truth Report, and we are looking forward to continuing conversations with them about that and other things at our next meeting. I traveled to Seattle earlier last month to participate in the APLU fall meeting. I found the opportunity to meet with other university leaders really very valuable. We had shared experiences in our challenges and success, and I attended sessions about the role of AI, academic freedom, and enrollment challenges. The fall wraps up an athletic season, and athletics are an important part of all of our campuses, a really enjoyable aspect for our students and faculty, including, of course, the student athletes themselves. I want to offer my congratulations to the University of Minnesota Morris football team, which won its first conference title since 2016.
Bravo.
Well, there's going to be a lot of applause coming then. The University of Minnesota Crookston Trap team, which is a newer sport, finished second in the nation in this growing sport.
Wow.
On the volleyball court, both the Bulldogs and the Gophers were selected to play in the national tournament. The Gophers won their first round match against Utah State, which is their 9th straight season of winning a first round match in the NCAA tournament. Also at Duluth, the men's cross country team finished runner-up in the SIC championship meet, and Bulldog football finished the season at a 9-2 record. And despite a little bit more of an up and down fall for our Gopher football team after consecutive 9-win seasons, the squad did bring home the Floyd of Rosedale Trophy by defeating Iowa. And the team has been selected to play in the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit on December 26th. It's really honestly quite gratifying to see that this selection was based on the strength of the team's academic performance, which is a testament to the comprehensive program that Coach Fleck has built. It also honestly typifies the great work in the classroom by the student athletes throughout our University of Minnesota system. And finally, the weekend before Thanksgiving, I had the pleasure of traveling to Washington, D.C. with Brian Burr, the Dean of our College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences, for events related to the National Thanksgiving Turkey Ceremony. This year's National Thanksgiving Turkey, Liberty, and its alternate Bell are from Minnesota, which leads the nation in turkey production. For the first time ever, the pardoned turkeys will live out the rest of their lives at the University of Minnesota. They'll serve as educational ambassadors at CFANS, where they'll help instruct the next generation of agricultural students. And later today, I will be part of an official ceremony welcoming them to their new home in St. Paul. That concludes my report. We look to the conclusion of the fall semester across our campuses. I wish everyone some well-earned rest and relaxation, and hope you all have a great holiday season.
Thank you, Interim President Ettinger, for your remarks. Turning to my own report, I would like to say a few words about public safety first, which remains of utmost importance to me, the board, and the university's administration. I've read the correspondence we have received from members of our community following the tragic events in the Dinkytown neighborhood this past weekend, and I understand your reactions to this horrific set of events. The university continues to adopt a comprehensive and widespread strategy, which we will hear about in greater detail later this morning in this meeting. I would ask that you continue your review of the university's Safe Campus website, and please make use of the resources we provide, such as the Campus Safe Walk, the RAVE Guardian Campus Safety app, and the Gopher Chauffeur program. Next, I would like to share a brief review of the board's calendar and anticipate what is in store for us for 2024. In May, region elections took place, and our 4 new colleagues took the oath of the office shortly thereafter, and they have participated with great energy in what we do here at the University of Minnesota, and great commitment as well. At this point, they have largely completed their onboarding and orientation at the university. And we now hope that they are up to speed and will continue to offer the input and insights that they've already offered as they have been onboarding. We also welcomed Interim President Ettinger in May and have received wonderful feedback from many constituencies about his steady leadership during this transition year at the university. At our July retreat, we kicked off the presidential search and launched the creation of 2 special committees to further advance the board's strategic work: the Special Committee on Academic Health and the Special Committee on University Relations. In September, the board's virtual forum was launched to increase our commitment to transparency and engagement with members of the university community. And I want to thank those who have used the virtual forum as a means of providing input to the board. Your input matters to us, and it is important as my colleagues and I take up university business. The board will hear an update on the pilot later today. The virtual forum will be live for at least 2 more meetings before we begin evaluating the pilot's future. Looking forward to 2024, the university will complete the search for the university's 18th president. I want to extend gratitude to the Search Advisory Committee Chair, Regent Mary Davenport, and Vice Chair Chris Eugen for their leadership with this process. Thank you again to Regents James Farnsworth and Ruth Johnson, and most importantly, to all the members of all of the communities of the committee from their various constituencies for their commitment to this very important effort. Since the search process began, the search committees is engaged with the university committee through many listening sessions that ultimately led to the development of the position profile. That position profile was approved by the board in November, and our search consultants are now actively engaged in recruiting candidates. As a reminder to everyone, either in the room or listening, nominations can be submitted at president-search.umn.edu. In addition to the search, we have a number of other work plan items ahead of us through our various committees, and I look forward to engaging with all of you as we shape decisions that will elevate the university's mission for decades to come. I am so impressed by the work that the faculty, staff, and students contribute to this great institution. With this upcoming holiday season upon us, I wish all of you a safe and splendid season. And with that, that concludes my report, and we will turn to the next agenda item. The next agenda item, item 4, is to receive and file reports. Please note those items reported in the docket materials. The next item is we will consider the consent report. The consent report includes gifts, the report of the All University Honors Committee, and the report of the Naming Committee. I'll note that Interim President Ettinger has recused himself for the portion of the gifts item related to the Hormel Foundation. So I bring that item forward with my recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the consent report? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor of approving the consent report, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Thank you. Our next item is the time where we will formally review the University Performance and Accountability Report, which outlines the ways in which we are delivering our mission. This annual report provides the board with the information needed to fulfill its accountability role. Throughout the year, it is used as a reference guide to the university's progress towards strategic goals. The report is before us for review today, when we will return to it for action in February. Interim President Ettinger, please lead us off on the discussion regarding the University Performance and Accountability Report, and then we will turn to Provost Croson for some highlights from the report. Interim President Ettinger.
Thank you, Chair Mayron and members of the board. When I joined the university, I was very gratified to see that there already was in place a comprehensive system-wide strategic plan, Impact 2025, and not one that just sits on the shelf, but one that everyone actively uses at this university. It has provided us with a tool to track progress on our highest priority goals. When you look at the recent accomplishments as highlighted in the U's Performance and Accountability Report, there is just very much to be proud of. Provost Croson will note these accomplishments in much greater detail, but let me offer a few highlights. System-wide, our incoming class in the fall had the highest percentage of BIPOC students in our recorded history, nearly 1/3 of all freshmen. Newly hired faculty and staff who identify as BIPOC also rose to a new high of nearly 25% system-wide. Upon graduation, nearly 92% of our students system-wide are employed or continuing their education, and over 2/3 of the employed graduates work for an organization in the state of Minnesota. We topped $1 billion in research awards for the third year in a row, as you heard from Dr. Priya's report yesterday, and launched a record-setting 23 startup companies, and the list goes on, as you'll see. Our University of Minnesota system is dedicated to student success, to discovery and innovation, to collaboration with our many partners across the state, to community belonging, and to fiscal stewardship. Our work in all of these areas will continue with a firm resolve, and I'm delighted to hear of our progress to date. Chair Mayron, I'd like to turn this over now to our outstanding provost, Rachel Croson, to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Interim President Ettinger, Chair Mayron, and members of the board. I'd like to add my thanks and an acknowledgement to all of those who have worked this past year to track the impact metrics and to gather the data so we could present this report. The report reflects metrics, rankings, and other data received over the last month to provide you with the most up-to-date information as of today's meeting. A special thanks to Link Carlson and the Institutional Analysis team, Kelly Voigt and the University Relations team, senior staff from both my office and the Office of the President for all their work to get us here today. But I especially want to thank all of those individuals whose efforts have generated the underlying outcomes which this report presents. Their work is a true system-wide collaboration involving all of our senior leaders, their faculty and staff on all 5 of our campuses. As we do each December, we bring you this report for your review only. The final report will come to you for action in February. Between now and then, we'll incorporate any corrections noted in our final proofreading, comparison data between the university and other peer institutions, or adjustments driven by today's conversation. I'm not going to discuss each measure over all 5 commitment areas. First of all, it's a lot, but also because much of what we're reporting here either has been or will be the subject of a more in-depth presentation over the course of the year. For example, Vice President Priya's in-depth presentation yesterday addressed many of the elements of the discovery, innovation, and impact commitment. But all metrics for the system-wide strategic plan are tracked internally by the university and can be made available upon request. I will, however, mention some highlights. So a couple of metrics related to our commitment to Minnesota. The vast majority of our incoming class this year are Minnesotan, and as mentioned by Interim President Ettinger, nearly 1/3 of this fall's freshman class consisted of BIPOC students. The report further highlights our progress toward increasing graduation rates, including the strong efforts being made toward meeting the Twin Cities campus 4-year graduation rate goal of 76%. The university is a leader in producing an educated workforce for the state of Minnesota. 67.3% of our system-wide graduating class of 2022 are now employed by a company or organization within the state. While student success is one of the main commitments of the Impact 25 strategic plan, we also have a lot to be proud of when it comes to our faculty and staff. Newly hired faculty and staff who identify as BIPOC rose to a new high of nearly 25% system-wide, and the percentage of total BIPOC faculty and staff has risen more than 6 percentage points since 2012. As we heard from Vice President Priya in his presentation yesterday, external research funding has increased 30% over the past 5 years, with over $1 billion in sponsored research 3 years in a row. This has also included 23 new startups launched in the past year and around $500 million in state-sponsored research over the past 5 years. Additionally, the university's extension reach has continued to grow as partnerships have risen over 22% in the past 2 years. Currently, over 1,700 partnerships further our mission to bring Minnesotans together to build a better future through university science-based knowledge, expertise, and training. Finally, I'd like to touch on the university's success as recognized by multiple outlets. I'm delighted to report that the medical school rose in the NIH Blue Ridge rankings to number 21 among all medical schools. Not only does this exceed the strategic plan's goal of being a top 25 medical school by 2025, it puts us at number 3 of our Big Ten peers and 6 places higher than the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, with my condolences to Regent Johnson. Each of our campuses has either maintained or increased their rankings among their respective categories. No campus rose more in the rankings than Duluth, which climbed 12 spots among regional universities in the Midwest, taking the number 21 spot overall and number 4 among public schools. This success comes a year after Duluth ascended 8 spots in the overall rankings, meaning that University of Minnesota Duluth has leapfrogged 20 institutions in the past 2 years to claim its current spot. Crookston and Morris successfully maintained their respective rankings among the top 10 in their peer groups. Crookston ranked as number 3 among public regional colleges in the Midwest and number 32 among all regional colleges in the Midwest, public or private. Morris remained ranked number 8 in top public schools among national liberal arts colleges for the second consecutive year. And the Twin Cities campus was named the number 23 public university in the United States, maintaining its standing in the top 25, which is the stated goal of the strategic plan. Among all 435 institutions, public and private, considered for the National Universities category, University of Minnesota Twin Cities climbed 9 spots to be ranked number 53 nationally, placing the campus in the top 13% of all ranked universities. As a reminder, the Rochester campus is accredited with the Twin Cities campus, so its results are included in the Twin Cities ranking. Finally, as you may recall from the board's October Mission Fulfillment Committee meeting, the university has made significant progress toward its sustainable development goals, as ranked by the Times Higher Ed SDG rankings, including being ranked number 8 overall among American universities. Chair Mayron, members of the board, thank you for the chance to discuss a few key measures in the report. I know Interim President Ettinger and I welcome your comments and thoughts.
All right. At this time, we will open the discussion. On behalf of any of my fellow colleagues here, any questions, comments you have, let's hear them. I think that means we're overwhelmed, but let me, by what you've presented to us and the success you're having, any comments? Yes, Regent Hipsch.
I just want to say great job. Congratulations to everybody that touched these numbers, because they're definitely improving, so thank you.
Any other, yes, Regent Verheugen.
I echo that appreciation. I think the one thing we should definitely start thinking about as we're getting these reports going forward is what's next. What are we going to do next? What's our next strategic plan look like? Let's challenge ourselves and not just put things that we know are going to be the trajectory, but what do we need to start thinking about going forward? Especially because this was 2025 and we're already less than 30 days to 2024.
Excellent point. Other comments? Yes, Regent Wheeler.
Yeah, first of all, appreciate it very much. I mean, to look at these performance reviews and outcomes, I mean, that's something that we really need to have oversight and a sight line to, and to have it and be such so salient and measurable is really meaningful. I'm wondering if there's anything on the broader report card which causes concern that we should be, of which we should be aware.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, Regent Wheeler. So there's always concerns in any given year. I think as the board has heard, enrollment challenges, especially resulting from the pandemic, but also resulting from the demographic change that we're seeing in the Midwest and the change in college going attitudes, as some of the committee members might have heard in other places, remains a persistent challenge that not only we, but our peer institutions need to address. I met with the Big Ten provosts on Monday, and this was a major topic of conversation, is kind of where the demographics are going, where the enrollment is likely to go, and how we need to continue to be flexible around those questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Mayron.
Other questions? I have a question, and it's a follow-on to Regent Wheeler's question. As we look at the chart that's part of the annual report that will go, I believe, to the legislature ultimately, we've identified there's a lot of green, and the good news is there's no red. That's fantastic. There are some gold, which says we're still in progress. We haven't met those goals. So what's the approach by the administration to achieve, hopefully, get green, literally and figuratively, on all of these measures?
Yeah, Chair Mayron, members of the committee, thank you for that question. So, of course, when we see something that's yellow, when we're not making progress, or maybe we're not making progress as fast as we had hoped at this stage, the first question is to think about why. What's the impediment? Is this something that we have control over or not? And if so, what adjustments should we be making? And is this something that we maybe don't have control over, but there's something that we can do in order to ameliorate whatever externally is causing that? But I also want to come back to something that Regent Verhalen kind of alluded to in her comment, which is if you're meeting all your goals, you probably weren't ambitious enough to start with. This was a very ambitious plan at the time that it was created. Some of you were on the board at that time. And so, from my perspective, as I think about strategic planning, I'm kind of comfortable with having some goals that we make great progress toward, but maybe we don't make it 100%. And that we continue that work in our next strategic plan and moving forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments by colleagues? Yes, Regent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. I'm thinking a little bit along the lines of the dynamic Regent Verhalen commented on, and then what the provost just said. Thinking about what this looks like moving forward. How do we look at some of these metrics and think about them in unique ways? So one thing that kind of stuck out was on the slides, page 85, where you were just talking about how our system serves Minnesota. And one number there's many things I think I could make this point using, but 67.3% of employed graduates work for a company or organization located in Minnesota. One thought would be, how does that compare nationwide? And how could we extrapolate that and look at that in other ways? So again, prompted by some of the discussion we just had, that's something that I think makes sense, or a way of thinking about these numbers and our metrics and how they're being presented, to kind of have that forward-looking lens. So thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
co-chair. You mentioned to me last night that when you're sitting in the chair, you can't remember anybody's name. That's the problem.
We acknowledged it in the other committee
Yes,
earlier today.
all right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Provost Croson, thanks for the update. And as everyone has commented, I mean, even as we look at some yellow, you really have to look at the numbers in the green and the jump that was made. Even the ones in yellow, the delta, I mean, it's still progress, and some of them are things we've been talking about. We talked about research yesterday, and that's here. Just wanted to draw attention to, just make a comment. Graduation rates is always a particular area of interest for myself, for everyone, really. I always say that the only thing worse than student debt is student debt and no degree. And I think this is particularly the system line here. We've made progress, not quite there on that one. That's one, again, I'm sure you're aware of this, and there's all sorts of initiatives, but one I'd like to call out, because I think the worst thing is to come and not have a degree and still have the debt. So thank you.
Yeah,
Regent
Aaron,
yes.
Regent Kenyanya, no, I fully agree on the graduation rates. One of the things we're seeing is the holdover from the pandemic. So the entering class of fall 2020, and to some extent the entering class of fall 21, really struggled as a result of the online learning and all the things that happened. And so the first year retention rates for those classes were lower than we had typically experienced. As a result, the four-year graduation rates are going to be lower because those students who left after year one do not finish. I will add there are some initiatives going on to re-engage students who have dropped out maybe as a result of that pandemic, and some longer-term initiatives around addressing the very problem you pointed out of individuals with some college but no degree. And you'll be hearing more about those initiatives from both Bob McMaster and Vice Provost Watkins.
Thank you.
Yes, Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. Provost Croson, I was just wondering, maybe you don't have these numbers, but do we anticipate the new state legislation that is going to assist people families that make $80,000 or less as far as getting two-year college? Is all of those students going to potentially go to the state system, or can we anticipate some coming to our university system? Do you have any, are you looking to that at all?
Chair Mayron, Regent Turner, it's a great question. Of course, nobody knows. I will add that the University of Minnesota for the past few years has had a Promise Plus program, where any family with a family income of under $50,000 was already attending for free. And families in the 50 to 80 were getting pretty heavily subsidized. Okay. And so on the one hand, we welcome, of course, all of those students, but especially the publicity that this statewide program provides in order to make families and students realize that college is within their reach, that maybe they would not have realized had they not looked at our financial aid programs. But it remains to be seen kind of if there's actually an enrollment bump there.
Yeah, I could just add one other comment. During our testimony at the House Higher Ed Committee here at the end of October, we did provide some data with a very rough set of preliminary estimates. And indeed, we definitely anticipate at least some of those students coming, and time will tell how precise that estimate is.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you. Thank you to our provost, and thank you, Interim President Ettinger, for this very robust report. Great work. All right. At this time, how are we doing on time here? I think we'll just keep proceeding forward. At this time, we will now turn to item number 7, which is a report from the various Senate consultative committees. With us here today and coming up to the horseshoe are Mark B., Chair of the Faculty Consultative Committee and Senate Consultative Committee, Matthew Verkuylen, Chair of the P&A Consultative Committee, and Whitney Taha Frakes, Chair of the Civil Service Consultative Committee. I always look forward to these updates from our shared governance partners. And with that, Professor B., if you would like to start.
Chair Mayron, members of the board, President Ettinger, on behalf of my Vice Chair, Jen Goodnow, and all of my colleagues in the University and Faculty Senates, thank you for the opportunity to present this fall semester report. I'm here today wearing two related but different hats. I chair the Senate Consultative Committee, or SCC, which is the Executive Committee of the University Senate. As you know, the University Senate comprises 4 constituent senates, including the Faculty Senate, and I also chair the Executive Committee of that body called the FCC. I want to begin with a point or an expression of gratitude. With outstanding support from Aaron Heath and the entire team in the University Senate office, we recently hosted the Big Ten Academic Alliance's Conference for Faculty Governance Leaders. In conversations with my Big Ten counterparts, it became crystal clear that we at Minnesota have many more, call them points of contact, between Senate leaders and members of the board and the administration. I've listed several of them here. Suffice it to say, more than a few of my Big Ten counterparts were jealous. So on behalf of my Senate colleagues here at the U, thank you for engaging with the University Senate in the spirit of partnership and collaboration that defines how we do shared governance here at the U. It is in this spirit of partnership and collaboration that I want to report on 2 recent legislative actions that together represent the University and Faculty Senate's sounding alarms regarding issues of concern to the U's workforce. I won't discuss it here, but I think a third such alarm is the recent decision of our graduate students to unionize. The first of the alarms I will discuss is the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution. As my predecessor, Colleen Flaherty Manchester, reported at the June board meeting, the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution passed the University Senate unanimously back in April. It is the product of an unprecedented collaboration between students, staff, and faculty serving in University Senate governance. One message we heard loud and clear while drafting the resolution was that we needed to go big or go home. Anyone who has read the resolution knows that we opted to go big. The resolution is organized around 4 what I'll call people-centric principles that together ask the administration to reinvest in the U's human capital, its 27,000 employees. The first of these principles, which I will return to momentarily, asks the university to provide employees with livable, equitable, and competitive pay. The administration is working on a response that I understand will be ready in the spring, and we hope that, like the resolution's authors, the administration will also opt to go big. I want to turn now to report on the issue of competitive pay. I will do so from the perspective of the faculty, but I believe this perspective reflects common concerns about compensation shared across employee groups. Last month, the FCC shared with this board and the administration its report on the competitiveness of faculty compensation. The report represents supporting data, if you will, for the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution. In the report, the FCC asked, how competitive are faculty salaries relative to peer institutions? I'm using the term faculty here to include regular faculty, term faculty, and P&A employees with primary responsibility for teaching. The report's main conclusion is that relative to peers, faculty salaries at the U are demonstrably uncompetitive. And I want to very quickly walk you through just a thin slice of the data included in the report, and this will be data for the Twin Cities campus, to illustrate the magnitude of the problem. The university's website currently lists the top 10 public research universities as our peer institutions for benchmarking. According to the website, the Twin Cities campus comparison group includes the best public research universities in the United States. And using this peer group as a benchmark, the campus intentionally measures itself against the highest standards in the nation. So, how do our faculty salaries compare against the very best public research universities? The graph on the left shows the average faculty salary at the U relative to the average of our top 10 peers as a percentage. As you can see, between 2002 and 2021, our average faculty salary declined by more than 15% relative to their average. The graph on the right shows data for 2022. Faculty salaries on the Twin Cities campus ranked at the very bottom of this peer group. And we are not just a few percentage points below their average. We are 20% below their average. As detailed in the FCC report, faculty salaries are uncompetitive across the system, across faculty ranks, and across multiple different peer groups. These data should be alarming. And that's because uncompetitive salaries make it harder to recruit and retain the best employees. Now, if the U were being outcompeted for faculty and staff because of declining competitiveness in our salaries, one would predict that we might see evidence of this reflected in measures of institutional quality. To evaluate this possibility, the FCC report also examined longitudinal trends in 2 metrics in Impact 2025 that reflect our quality as a research university. You heard about both of these measures yesterday in Vice President Priya's presentation, and you've heard about them already this morning. The first of these is our total R&D expenditures, shown here going back to 1972. As the gold line illustrates, the U's research expenditures measured in dollars have been increasing year over year at an accelerating pace over the past 50 years. That's a great thing, and we hear a lot about it. The problem, it's a problem that we hear far less about, is that everyone else's research expenditures are going up too. And for many of our peers, they're going up faster than ours. As a result, our national ranking on this metric, shown in the maroon line, is going down, and it has been for 30 years. Yesterday, Vice President Prius spoke of his vision to get the U on the podium. I quite like that metaphor. In 1991, we were on the podium. The U ranked third in the nation, behind Johns Hopkins and Michigan among all public and private universities. Contrast that with 2021, which was the most recent data we examined. In the 30 years between 1981 and 2021, which was, we fell from third to 22nd, okay? So whether we go up or down in any given year, I would call that noise. Signal that should be of interest to all of us is depicted here in the downward trending maroon line. A second Impact 2025 metric the FCC report examines is our position in the academic ranking of world universities, or the Shanghai rankings. Excuse me. The U's stated goal in Impact 2025 is to rank among the top 35 universities in the world. We once did. Between 2003, when these rankings were started, I believe, and 2008, our rank increased from 37th to 28th. But by 2022, we had declined to 44th, where we currently sit. Again, the signal of interest here is the downward trending arrow. To summarize, faculty salaries at the U are in decline relative to peer institutions, and so are two Impact 2025 measures of institutional quality. In the FCC report, we offer what we think is a plausible hypothesis to explain some of these trends. The graph on the left here shows data on two key sources of revenue that fund things like employee salaries and raises, state appropriations and tuition. The maroon line shows the state of Minnesota's inflation-adjusted per capita expenditures on higher education going back to 1980. Starting in 2002, the state's investment in higher education began to decline precipitously, only leveling off in about 2014 at a new and much lower level. The gold line shows inflation-adjusted undergraduate resident tuition over the same period. Starting in about 2010, the university entered a period that still continues today, in which annual tuition increases have been held at or below the annual rate of inflation. This is indicated by the flat and eventually downward trending portion of the gold line. So within the time frame indicated by the shaded region, we've been sort of stuck in an era marked by the intersection of reduced state investment in higher ed and relatively low percentage increases in tuition. Now, I would submit that budget constraints created by this situation, along with past budgeting decisions that failed to adequately prioritize the workforce, have driven down the competitiveness of employee salaries. In turn, this has negatively impacted the U's ability to recruit and retain the best faculty and staff, with negative consequences for the institution's ability to deliver on our mission that emerge when looking over long time spans. I noted earlier that the university and faculty senates are sounding an alarm. We're doing so at a pivotal moment as this board prepares to select our next president. There is, I think, some hope that our next president will put us on a new strategic path, a more aspirational trajectory that genuinely and successfully pursues excellence. I think I speak for many faculty and staff, and I hope students too, in saying that the alternative is not something any of us are very interested in. That concludes my report. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'll be happy to answer questions now or after my colleagues have reported. Thank you.
My thinking is we'll hear from all three groups, and then we'll open it up for discussion and questions at that time, if that works. All right. Then at this time, what I would like to do is, make sure I get this correct here, is ask Matthew Verkuylen, who is chair of the P&A Consultative Committee, to address us. And before you do, let me, by the way, thank you for your role on the Presidential Search Committee. We added to your burden. I certainly understand that, but your input is critical, and we very much appreciate your willingness to serve on that committee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And one correction, I am representing the Civil Service Consultative Committee as chair today.
I have this reversed.
Yes.
Then I really apologize, and that means I have it reversed as to our last speaker as well, Whitney Taha Frakes. So I apologize to the two of you.
So good morning. On behalf of our Civil Service Senate, I appreciate the opportunity to give this report. I'm honored to be able to represent the over 5,300 civil service employees that span each of our campuses throughout the University of Minnesota system. Our civil service employees have played an integral part in not only shared governance, but also in the involvement within not only their respective campuses, but within the university-wide initiatives as well. While more detail on that is within the report that was included in our docket, I bring this forward to reinforce the impact that our constituents have within shared governance, and especially within our system campuses. One theme that I have heard over the past year, and there is no concrete data to support this, so it's more of echoes of some of our constituents, is often decisions seem to be made with the Twin Cities campus as focus, or at least that's the optic that is portrayed at times. This, again, while not confirmed, we feel impacts our participation levels and our ability to recruit future senators for the Civil Service Senate. Addition to that, we have heard concerns of supervisors and program heads who are not supportive of our civil service constituents being involved in shared governance because the time that potentially would take away from their current job. These are all issues we're exploring more, and we're working on constructive ways to resolve this. One such way looking at our representation is starting to look at target areas where traditionally we have had lower participation. Targeting, of course, can take many forms, such as traditional in-person visits, town hall styles. But I also feel that it's much more than that. As senators, it's important to portray the why we are doing this work in the first place. That why then becomes not only relatable, but also becomes a selling point and even a solid discussion point when working with not only our supervisors, but our college and our prospective senators as well. Secondly, we've looked at how we can collaborate more efficiently and more effectively within our Senate subcommittees. An example of this is our Compensation and Benefits Subcommittee, as well as our Employment Rules Subcommittees, who have begun meeting together several times during the year to both foster collaboration on issues facing our constituents, but also being in tune with what each committee is doing, because each has an important role to play with every issue that comes through. This is something new. This is something outside of the box, and it came from a means of how do we work smarter, not harder, within our work. More details on this work is in my written report. Our communications subcommittee will be starting work soon also on how we can collaborate across the system in newer ways, and even across our shared governance model. We have communication committees, subcommittees between all three senates. This is an opportunity that we can not only divide and conquer, but collaborate to have a central message and central support for all of our constituents and all of our representation. From a Civil Service Consultative Committee side, I'll challenge you to say that quickly. Work is being done to streamline the many aspects that face our current and future leadership within the CSCC. Such work includes documenting processes that can be transitioned to new leadership each year and ensuring less of a learning curve and reinvention of the wheel, as it were, and more of a true transition. This includes how we work with our amazing Senate office, with the university as a whole, and how we mentor our future leaders within our Senate. This is very important. Every time that we start a new year, we start a new leadership. And especially with this year, I've been working closely with Stacey Mayer, our chair-elect. So she's working side by side to ensure that as we move through the year, as we move into projects for future years, we do not lose momentum along the way. As chair, I could not be prouder of the work being done by our civil service employees, and further by those that have stepped up into their roles on various committee and task forces that help make the university what it is. I'm looking forward to be able to giving our annual report this spring, and once again, I thank you for the opportunity to give this mid-year report today. Thank you.
And now we will move to Whitney Taha Frakes, who is chair of the P&A Consultative Committee, for your report.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, and it is completely excusable.
Well, thank you.
Members of the board and interim president Edinger, on behalf of myself and the chair-elect Kit Brashears and my other colleagues on the P&A Consultative Committee, retention of staff is at the heart of our work, of PAC's work. Many of the individuals who set aside time to volunteer and contribute to governance do so because of a shared belief that the University of Minnesota is a vital state institution whose mission serves a greater purpose than our own individual selves. Governance provides an avenue to advocate for effective policies and practices so we can continue to be a part of the university's mission. P&A employees are integral, as my friend here also said about civil service, but we are integral to delivering the mission at the University of Minnesota. The University Senate Governance website summarizes the creation of the P&A employee class, stating, quote, "The P&A classification was established in 1980 because the existing employment classifications did not adequately accommodate several converging trends at the university in the 1970s and early 1980s. More research was being conducted, the proposal and reporting requirements were becoming increasingly complicated, legal mandates required considerably more administration, and new federal programs allowed for expanded university outreach opportunities. Tasks that had been appropriate for civil service staff no longer seemed appropriate. New positions demanded autonomy, flexible hours, and professional or academic preparation. At the same time, university administrators decided it was unwise to expand tenure to accommodate this new work because of the uncertain financial situation. A dramatic increase in tenured positions was not possible, nor was conferring tenure status on career administrators. The drafters of the original P&A policy thought the number of P&As would be fairly limited, and they did not expect the burgeoning number of P&A job titles that was developed at the university, end quote. The P&A employee class is now largest among all employee groups at the University of Minnesota. Our employee class is made up of research fellows, librarians, program and unit communicators, directors of degree programs, directors of admission and academic advisors, extension regional educators and specialists, and teaching faculty, just to name a few, not an exhaustive list. That would take too long. What used to attract and retain P&A employees no longer has the impact it once did. If we don't recognize that and make changes, we risk losing dedicated, knowledgeable, and creative people who are committed to the university's mission. As evidenced in the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution, retaining employees requires intervention at many levels and cannot be solved by singular adjustments. The following 5 points have been identified by P&A employees across the system and are an expansion on items contained in priorities for principles 2 and 3 in that referenced resolution. We believe a combination of adjustments to each could lead to increased employee engagement and higher retention levels. So I'll walk you through those. Number 1. Multi-year appointments. Overwhelmingly, staff members are committed to their roles. Recently, a P&A Senate member from Rochester told me, "We have a really great dedicated group of student-facing P&A staff who want to be here for their whole career." However, the structure of the P&A appointment prohibits long-term planning that is necessary for curriculum and program development. Employees believe a multi-year appointment will enable them to plan, provide continuity, and yield support for students. Number 2, competitive salary. A PNA employee recently shared that I'm extremely passionate. My work has impact and meaning, locally and statewide. We cannot expect, however, my longevity is dependent upon salary increases and benefit improvements. We cannot expect life-changing, system-shaking work to come from employees with below average pay. Many of the PNA staff we hear from are wrestling with how to continue their work at the university when other organizations offer increasingly higher wages. I'm, and I quote here, constantly looking to find a similar job in industry rather than thinking about staying at the University of Minnesota strictly due to compensation and industry being much higher, end quote. Number 3, commitment to flexible work arrangements. Flexible work arrangements provide autonomy, speak to a level of trust between the university and employees, and, quote, demonstrate an understanding and value of mental health and balance between work and personal life, an extension employee recently shared with me. Offering flexible work is also viewed as a competitive advantage compared to other employers. Employees have pointed out many times the nature of work has shifted. For example, programming, especially in outreach work done by extension educators, is scheduled outside of standard business hours in order to reach a broader audience. Additionally, many employees believe that work that requires large blocks of time to focus are better done in remote settings with reduced opportunities for distractions. Flexible work is no longer a perk, and I did not mean for that to rhyme, but an essential element of infrastructure now to do our work, much like you would expect from a laptop, software credentials, or your U cards. Number 4, expand the Regents Scholarship. A recent review of the Regents Scholarship Program has already yielded the potential for barrier-reducing access, and we applaud the work that has already been done and push for greater access to reduced and free tuition for dependents of staff members. Expanding the tuition benefit binds employees in a way that really matters. One employee recently shared that while I personally love working at the University of Minnesota, I have already started considering shifting to an institution that offers tuition for dependents in the next 5 to 10 years as I plan for my children to enroll in higher education. When an employee reviews our portfolio of benefits associated with working for a higher education institution, an emphasis on access to education can materially outweigh the other perceived shortfalls. And number 5, career pathways and clear advancement opportunities. Lack of defined career advancement for both supervisory responsibilities and individual contributors is demotivating for many employees. Under the current structure of reclassification, and I'll note other industries use the word promotion, it is common for requests to be stalled at the local level without being submitted to the Office of Human Resources for consideration. Employees who experience shifting workloads, new priorities, and responsibilities without formal recognition often feel underappreciated and taken advantage of. Additionally, the current reclassification structure to advance assumes that all who advance in their career assume managerial responsibility. This isn't possible across the entire organization when system campuses or extension teams are a team of one. The university is missing an opportunity to advance high-performing individuals simply because the unit or office is smaller in nature. In closing, retaining employees is an investment in the entire organization. A retained employee who has institutional knowledge and experience can drive the mission forward effectively and efficiently, more so than a new hire. Employees who feel valued and supported by the organization are more likely to be engaged, resulting in high-quality outreach, research, and education for our students and community members. And thank you.
Thank you very much to all of our presenters for your presentation and the materials that you provided to us in support of your presentations today. Well, at this time, I'd like to open it up to any discussion or comments from my colleagues. Yes, let's start off with our interim president, Ettinger.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity, Chair Mayron, to thank Mark, Matt, and Whitney for their reports today and their leadership of their respective committees. You each play a very critical role in shared governance, and it's been a particular benefit for me coming from a non-academic background to have the advantage of tapping into your knowledge and expertise. I also, want to specifically thank FCC Chair Mark B. and the FCC for their work on this report that we received, the faculty compensation report. The analysis is thoughtful, it's thorough, and it clearly identifies some true challenges for our university. It's important work, and I believe it's complementary to the University Reinvestment Resolution that the University Senate endorsed last spring. We are indeed working first on a comprehensive response to that workforce reinvestment resolution. A small group led by Beth Lewis, who's the Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, and Mary Roman Kuhl, who was OHR's Senior Director for Total Rewards, is finalizing a proposed response that I anticipate will be delivered to the University Senate in the spring 2024 semester. And I definitely look forward to continued conversations with these great leaders. So I just wanted to have the chance to add that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regent Gully.
Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you, Chair. I had a bunch of questions, but I'm going to try to keep this somewhat brief. First of all, I was wondering, I didn't see all of everything that you had in your presentations in our packet. Would you mind sharing what you presented with me or with us? I would just really appreciate it. It had some information that I didn't know about, especially about some of the history and things like that, and it's really helpful to know, so thank you. I was wondering, I've actually been trying to figure out information about our P&A and term and contingent faculty salaries. And I know some of this is in the report, but it's not always clear what like the actual dollar amounts are. Could you all share that, what you know about it? And you don't have to share it right now. I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm really asking if you know, that's great. And if you don't know, could you possibly send it? Good. That would be okay.
Chair Mayron, Regent Gully, I'd be happy to. All of the data we show in the report itself is publicly available. It is from the American Association of University Professors website, and also the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System is where we got our data, but I'm happy to provide anything specific you'd like to see.
Thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. I know that some of this is in the report, and I really appreciate that. I tend to strongly lean on the. I think stories are powerful, and narrative is really powerful. Would you all be able to talk about, just share some of your own experiences and how this has, or maybe like pick one experience where you felt the impact of these things that you're talking about today?
Who'd like to go first? Or who would like to take it on?
Chair Mayron, Regent Gully, I will share just a very brief but personal story. A number of years ago, my wife, who is also a faculty member here, was headhunted by Ohio State. And she went to her then department and sought what we thought was a reasonable retention package. And the response was, go to Ohio State. And I suspect that was due to limited resources, not for any other reason.
Yeah. Any follow-up questions? Well, let me just ask if the others have a response. Otherwise, I want to make sure that Regent Gully, we can attend to your questions, but also to get comments from others as well, given all the other items as usual that we have on our agenda.
I would like to share more stories that I hear from others. I've been very fortunate in my personal experience to work for a unit that has really supported me in my career. But I do hear often that people who leave, positions that leave, don't get filled. And when that happens, the people that are left pick up the work. And then when they're asking for a raise, which seems reasonable, it's often cited that resource constraints wouldn't allow for that. So I think for an employee who doesn't have a sight line to a budget and seeing how the unit is operating, the logical question is then, well, how are you paying the person that just left? And what is happening with their salary that I'm now covering their workload? And so that's a frustration that I hear often, especially outside of the Twin Cities.
I would like to just go off of what my colleague Whitney has said. From the civil service side, what's especially challenging is to move into a position that would have a higher salary wage. Generally involves a reclassification process. That process is not perfect, and it oftentimes is very challenging. In our case, for civil service, a lot of times when a position will get reclassified, it becomes PNA, which is great because we're still retaining them as a university employee, but it also takes away then from the civil service constituency, which ultimately is fine. We're still retaining them, we're still retaining them. But similarly, we're facing similar problems where instead of a refilling of that position, it is left empty for many months, even into years. From a standpoint of we don't have the budget to refill this, we don't have the resources, or whatever rationale is behind it. That contributes then to another problem of employee burnout, where they are working sometimes 2 or 3 jobs just to make things work, because of the dedication our employees have to getting their jobs and their dedication. So it's a double-edged sword in that we want to do a good job. We're passionate about our work. We're loyal to the university. But it gets challenging when it gets to that point when you're taking on 2 or 3 jobs at the same time versus watching a position that just isn't being filled for whatever reason.
Thank you, Chair.
It is reason I know of several colleagues that have just straight up left the university because of that. And unfortunately, that's unfortunate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know you have other questions and follow-up, but I have several other regents who would like to comment, so I'm going to move on to the next regent, which is Regent Turner.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Mayron. My comment, I'm going to pick out something that I heard Mr. Burkeilen say. You mentioned a fact that is always a problem in the workforce. It's very important, I think, for employee satisfaction to have a voice at the table, in whatever means that is. And all of you seem to be a part of committees that are a voice at the table. And you also mentioned how sometimes in your committee that it's hard for employees to participate because they can't get it out of their FTE. Okay, getting that hour here, hour there for a meeting. I personally, as a regent, express a strong commitment, to the supervisors that this is extremely important to let people, because to expect people to do it a volunteer kind of thing, or above and beyond their work agreement. I just want to express my support for, if they've been elected to your committees, that this be a part of their work agreement. Because I know that even if it's monthly, we're only talking like an hour or 2. If it's more than that, yeah, then let's dicker about it. But I just want you to know that I support that concept of employees having a voice at the table.
Thank you, Regent Turner. Regent Davenport.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. I have just a couple comments. My second, I'll make my first because it piggybacks on Regent Turner's. And I echo Regent Turner's support for participation on committees and such, and that while we do need to, my expectation would be that supervisors and employees work together to make things work so that voices are at the table. I'd say that my work with the Presidential Search Advisory Committee, and thank you for serving on that, and thank you for the input you helped coordinate for us, really demonstrates I think the shared value and shared governance. And I knew that, but I really know it, feel it now, and have a deeper appreciation for that than I had before. So I want to then just say that the way you approached the workforce reinvestment resolution is a shared effort and not segmented. I think that serves us well as a board so that we see the big picture. We get a better understanding of the different classifications that we have, and that we're partners in this for the betterment of the university. And I feel that from the conversations I've had with so many, that we're all partners in the success of the university and thus the state. So I will close and just say I'm looking forward to the report or the response that comes out from the president's office. Thank you.
Any further comments on these very important topics? All right, hearing none. Not that there aren't things bubbling around in all of our heads. I know there are. That will conclude this particular report. Thank you very much from all three committees for bringing to attention the very important matters that you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a short 5-minute break, very short break, and then we will resume with the next item on the agenda. Thank you. All right.
I think maybe.
We will resume the board meeting here at this time. This time I want to move to the public safety update for the 2023-24 fall semester review. At this time, I would welcome Interim President Ettinger and Senior Vice President Franz to take us through this topic. President Ettinger.
Thank you so much, Chair Mayron. One of my highest priorities, and it was developed in conjunction with the board, is ensuring the safety and security of our students, faculty, and staff, and community members. I believe we've made progress in helping to foster a safe and welcoming environment on campus and in our nearby neighborhoods. But last weekend's violence in Dinkytown really underscores that this work is far from finished. The shooting inside a Dinkytown business was senseless and heartbreaking, and though the involved individuals were not U of M students or employees, we recognize the profound impact of events like this, especially given the proximity to our campus. Senior Vice President Franz will address this incident, along with many other efforts our Department of Public Safety team is making in his comments in a couple minutes. I've been impressed, though, by the investments that we're making and the fact that the students are being supportive of some of our safety efforts as well. So we had the chance to have lunch yesterday at Pioneer Hall and see it firsthand the new turnstiles on that in that facility, and I think that hopefully is a model that we'll be utilizing in other facilities as well. We've tried to provide students with an array of safety resources and tools, and we have heard positive feedback. I also really appreciate the robust conversations that are happening among our governance groups, with staff and faculty, with parents, community members, and our public officials. We all want a safe environment on and around our campuses. I have been eager to personally be part of some of these efforts, including the President's Strategic Safety Advisory Committee. And in mid-October, I had the chance to participate in a safety walk on the Twin Cities campus area in Dinkytown, as well as a meeting with community members committed to campus safety. I'm personally very thankful for Chief Clark's leadership and for the tireless efforts of UMPD in keeping our students, faculty, staff, and visitors safe on and near the Twin Cities campus. And I have the same thanks for all of our system campus officers as well. For all those who patrol Dinkytown, who provide extra visibility on mass transit, and to our staff who works nights and weekends during many events, your dedication is truly remarkable. And we need to also thank the legislature for specifically funding public safety in the last session. I see that Representative Marion Rarick is here with us today. She was one of the key supporters of this investment, and I know from my personal conversations with her that she shares my keen interest in the safety of our community members around our campus. I had the privilege of speaking before the House Higher Education, Finance, and Policy Committee in October, before Chair Pawlowski and Rep. Rarick and many others. Chief Clark provided an update on how we were spending the state funding, and many members seemed very supportive and complimentary of the UMPD and all of our teams who support safety on campus. While I'm encouraged by our robust safety efforts and ongoing strategies, there's always more to do, and I will not waver on safety being a top priority. With that, I'd like to turn the program over to Senior Vice President Myron Franz, who will share more about our safety efforts.
Thank you,
Senior Vice President Franz.
Madam Chair, members. Thank you, Interim President Ettinger. I want to start out by recognizing on behalf of Chief Clark, our University of Minnesota Police Department Chief, and myself, the recognizing as well the recent violent incident that occurred in the Dinkytown business area last week. It's tragic and saddening. Chief Clark was unable to attend today because of other duties, but Chief Clark asked me to report to you on his behalf that from his point of view, public safety continues to be a top priority for the university. Echoing what Interim President Ettinger just said, the university has made significant public safety investments in recent years, as we've talked about here, both on campus and the nearby Minneapolis neighborhoods. And we remain committed to doing everything we can to promote a safe environment for our students, faculty, staff, and visitors. Enhancing safety, especially off campus in Minneapolis, in the Minneapolis neighborhoods, requires a commitment and follow through from many of our community partners. We cannot do it alone. We rely on our strong relationships with the Minneapolis Police Department and the other partner agencies to continue to do their part. I think you all heard what we did at the beginning of semester this fall with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, the Metro Transit Police Authority, the Minnesota State Troopers, and the Minneapolis Police Department to coordinate our services as best we could on the off-campus activities. And we request and ask our elected city officials to continue to insist that the business areas comply with all business regulations necessary to maintain the right environment in our communities near the university. We all have responsibilities here. We cannot address this safety challenge without a real commitment, without real action, and real investment from not only the university, but from the city of Minneapolis and all of our partners in this area. The university's Department of Public Safety is actively doing their part to assist the city with off-campus crime in partnership with the Minneapolis Police Department. We have 53 uniformed police officers on the University of Minnesota Police Department. They work extra overtime shifts as they have throughout the past year. Recall that we must always maintain our first primary goal to maintaining safety on the campus of the University of Minnesota. But we should stop, and as Chief Clark has asked me, to thank all of our police officers for their continued extraordinary commitment with the ongoing overtime commitment that they make day after day, week after week, and now year after year. We face many of the same challenges, hiring challenges, of our other police departments in this area, metropolitan area. We are aggressively working to hire additional officers. As you may recall, we have an authorization of up to 71. We include hiring and retention bonuses and relocation stipends as we look for officers. And we've been successful in adding new officers in the last several months. We have explored and implemented many new creative solutions to supplement the University of Minnesota Police Department's work, including we've contracted with multiple law enforcement agencies, as I mentioned, to bring additional officers to off-campus neighborhoods. We've renewed our contract with Block by Block, and they are the folks who provide the safety guides in the Dinkytown area Thursday through Saturday evenings, providing additional visibility to security efforts and in-person resources for those who are in that area during those evenings. We have expanded our blue light kiosk network into the Dinkytown area, adding 2 new locations. Remember, the blue light kiosks are equipped with cameras monitored by the Department of Public Safety and connect directly to 911. While the events of the past weekend have caused legitimate concern, it is important to note that our resources and investments in neighborhoods adjacent to campus have had a positive impact on crime in the area. Statistics show that crime in the Marcy Holmes area, for example, neighborhood, has slowly declined. But as always, it doesn't mean we stop there. Chief Clark has asked me to report how proud he is of the Department of Public Safety team for their work, their dedication, and their commitment to the safety of our students, faculty, and staff. We've asked a lot of them in the last few years, and they've risen to that challenge. So thank you on behalf of Chief Clark to all the employees in the Department of Public Safety. Now, I'd like to report now about the strides we've made in fortifying the safety and well-being of this university community. Our collective work towards university safety is continuous, it's dynamic, and I'm both thankful and proud of the people who dedicate themselves to this effort in the same way that Interim President Ettinger just mentioned. I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude for the funding by the legislature allocated to the university last session for system-wide state security. Safety and security, On October 30, Chief Clark testified in front of the state legislature highlighting the significant impact of both the one-time and the recurring funds on the university's safety infrastructure contributed by the legislature. As you will recall, the state allocated the university $1 million per year ongoing recurring dollars for safety and security, and we also received one-time funding of $8 million over the next 2 years to support this work. As you know, one-time monies really are helpful for infrastructure improvements. The one-time funding here is helping us replace equipment and technology that have reached the end of their operational lifespan. The Department of Public Safety manages and monitors about 5,500 security cameras across the entire system, all 5 campuses, with about 1,200 needing replacement. Replacing those cameras is a crucial step in enhancing our overall security capabilities. These updated cameras can alert the Emergency Communications Center of suspicious activity in the area, so our officers and first responders can address potential issues before they become a problem. The updated camera systems also provide the clarity and reliability our 911 operators need to inform the responders of real-time situations with greater detail and accuracy about the situation they're about to encounter. The reliability, clarity, and accuracy of recorded camera footage is also crucial to our investigations unit as they analyze each scene and provide a fair and accurate account of incidents. A significant portion of state funding has been allocated for the complete overhaul of door access technology at our Duluth campus. The current system has become outdated and no longer meets our security standards. This project is underway, and we just last week included A.B. Anderson Hall as part of the new system. Upon completion, this upgrade will encompass about 429 doors across the Duluth campus. Each door will be connected to the university's central access control system. This centralized system empowers our Emergency Communications Center with the capability to secure every access point simultaneously in the event of a threat. This feature is a transformational step in our commitment to campus safety, ensuring a rapid and coordinated response to any emergency. I'd also like to highlight the comprehensive role of our Department of Public Safety, which extends its support to ensure safety across all of our 5 campuses. DPS staff are scheduled to conduct extensive perimeter security assessments at both the Crookston and Morris campuses. These assessments provide an important evaluation of the campus's outer boundaries by identifying any potential vulnerabilities and areas for improvement for our security measures. I'd also like to update you on the turnstile project that Interim President Ettinger just mentioned. Tailgating, as we all know, is where an unauthorized individual gains access by following someone who's authorized to go in. This is a common security challenge in high-traffic areas, including our residence hall. This issue often arises when, out of courtesy, a door is held open, it's 30 below zero, you hold the door open, and in comes someone who's actually not authorized to be there. We all get it. We've all been there. Well, to address this, we introduced the turnstiles that you all had a chance to see at Pioneer Hall yesterday. This was introduced this last fall with the specific goal of ensuring only residents and authorized dining card holders can access secure areas like in Pioneer Hall. This initiative was launched as a pilot project with some trepidation, and I'm pleased to report, though, that the effective in reducing unauthorized entries without hindering access to authorized individuals and students has worked very, very well. The success of this pilot, as Interim President Ettinger suggested, has led us to expand this strategy. We are now implementing similar turnstile systems in other residence hall, starting with Middlebrook Hall on the West Bank and the 17th Avenue Residence Hall just across the street. These measures are part of our ongoing commitment to enhance security across our campus while maintaining a welcome and accessible environment for our community. I'd like to talk a little bit about our effective crisis response, which is crucial in safeguarding lives and hinges on 2 core components. First, our physical response capabilities, and second, our proficiency in disseminating critical information swiftly and accurately to our students, faculty, and staff. We have to recognize the ever-evolving nature of emergency communications and the communication of our community members. The Department of Public Safety has proactively partnered with Axtel Group to conduct a top-to-bottom review of our current emergency communication practices. We believe that this review will encompass the structure, technology, and timing of our communications during emergencies. Over the coming months, we will engage with university community members to capture their expectations and perceptions regarding our communication during emergencies.
Well, that's what Regent Wheeler thinks.
An example of an emergency communication.
Not by any means.
We're pretty good, right?
Also the next line. Boom.
You may proceed.
I feel bad. That happened to me once when I was testifying at the legislature, and I was so like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't turn that off. And then, but Representative Rukavina from northern Minnesota piped up and says, "Don't worry," to the chair. "Don't worry, that's the governor calling Myron, telling him what to say." So. So that took it down a notch, right?
Thank you, Myron.
No, you're welcome. So we're conducting a thorough evaluation of this because existing emergency communication protocols mean a lot. They can literally save lives and make us aware of what's going on. This evaluation will focus on key areas such as the effectiveness of our communication channels, the clarity and the timeliness of our messaging, and the integration of technology in our emergency response. We're learning a lot about what's going on across the country in these kind of situations. We're committed to ensuring that our system is not only robust, but also agile and adaptive to the dynamic nature of these crisis situations. So within the next 6 months, we believe we'll be able to identify areas for enhancement and innovation to further improve our emergency communications, and we'll come to you and describe what we think we can do. I'd like to turn briefly to our community engagement work. Community involvement and community engagement is a core principle of crime reduction strategies. We all know that. Throughout the fall, members of the community have been participating in twice-weekly safety walks through the Dinkytown and Marcy Homes neighborhood. As Interim President Ettinger mentioned, he went on one recently. He was joined with Representatives Knorr and Senate Majority Leader Dietzick on that particular one. These walks are not only effective in identifying safety hazards such as lighting and blind spots, they also create an important sense of ownership and responsibility for the neighborhood. These walks concluded in November, and the group is meeting to discuss the effectiveness and plans for future walks. Now, recognizing that addressing students' perspectives and feelings regarding safety is a pivotal element in assessing our progress and adapting to meeting the evolving needs of our student community. Over the past year, we have undertaken a broad evaluation of student perceptions concerning safety resources and their overall sense of security on campus. During candid and insightful focus group discussions, as well as in-depth qualitative surveys, our students voice their perspectives and on the safety landscape of the Twin Cities campus. The feedback underscores a prevailing sense of awareness and confidence in the safety measures in place. Students conveyed their satisfaction with the university's efforts to make them aware of the safety resources such as Gopher Chauffeur and 624 Walk, and they were highlighted as well-known and positive options. Students also consistently reported positive interactions with the University of Minnesota Police Department, noting their helpfulness and understanding. I would just say since COVID, we've had a real opportunity to reignite, recharge those conversations and community engagements with our police department and the students to a great deal of satisfaction to our students. That was something that COVID really disrupted at a really bad time for us here in the Twin Cities. It just underscores how tough that time was. The results of a recent survey administered to our resident students underscore the success of safety communication. For example, 73% of students responded and expressed feeling adequately informed about public safety on campus. 88% felt they received the right amount of safety information from a variety of sources across campus. Those are good numbers, but anything less than 100% is simply not acceptable in the long run. Students also spoke candidly about the value of safety notifications, and they contribute to the awareness of safety. So these findings tell us that the commitment to our transparent and effective safety communication is working, and we want to continue to dedicate substantial time and resources to engage in meaningful interactions. Sometimes it's during the orientation sessions with parents and students, and it's a lot of times during the course of the semester. These investments are so critical to us fostering a campus culture that prioritizes safety, belonging, and respect. So as we move forward, we will remain committed to this interaction and really making sure we have these communications. Finally, I want to mention that we are gathering our annual updates to the University of Minnesota system-wide safety plan, and we will present the updates at a future meeting here at the board. The plan is required by Impact 2025, and it supports our Impact 2025 commitments, all of which rely on an environment where students, staff, and visitors feel safe on and around campus. The plan identifies 5 goals that serve as a roadmap for a holistic approach to continuous improvement of safety in the broadest sense. Last year, each campus developed actions and tactics that support these goals, and this year they have provided updates on progress and highlighted accomplishments. We have also had the great conversations and great assistance by the Campus Safety Committee and their members, led by Chair Edgar Arriaga, which contributes immensely to our understanding of what does a sense of safety mean, or a sense of culture of safety mean at the University of Minnesota. So thank you again to the entire campus for their commitment to safety. Thank you to the Department of Public Safety for all their work, and to Chief Clark for the work that he does. And I always end by saying, safety is everyone's concern, everyone's responsibility. Please take care of yourself and watch out for others. Thank you.
Thank you. President Ettinger, did you want to follow up?
I just have one short thing to add. It's a benefit of the lunch that was provided yesterday in Pioneer, and we had the chance to visit with the CAs, and Regent Davenport and I had a wonderful discussion with the 2 folks there. But the one CA mentioned not only the tailgating issue, but absent the gates, they basically are responsible for being the gatekeeper, and people will show up, oh, my friend wants me to come in or whatever, and they get berated, they get manipulated, and so this gate takes them out of the equation. So I think it's another added benefit to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for a very robust report. And when I look at our materials, and we've been doing this now basically pretty much since February of 2022 on a monthly basis, where you're coming to us every month and addressing what is just a top priority issue for us. Really appreciate it. Any questions or discussion by colleagues? Yes, Regent Hipsch.
Thanks, Chair Mayor. Yesterday at Pioneer Hall, people we were sitting with also talked about lighting as a possible issue in and around the neighborhoods. I know the legislature gave us money for that. I'm just wondering, have we spent all the money, or is there still additional lighting that's planning to go up?
Madam Chair, Regent Hibbs, are you talking about on campus or off campus?
Off campus.
Off?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, we've been working with the city of Minneapolis. I say we, Tina Rasmus, who is here with us today, has been working really, really hard with the city of Minneapolis, and they have committed funds to the lighting situation in general. But actually, it was a really great conversation that we had with several different council members, and it's not obviously just about what communities are adjacent to the university. There are lighting issues around this entire community, and so I think our pushing and prodding not only will help us get more responsiveness to lighting issues, fixing, repairing primarily what's there, but then adding to it. I think it's going to really benefit the entire metro community in Minneapolis, because people are realizing that there are too many spots that are just not well lit enough. And so anyway, the money is being spent, but we didn't get all that we wanted, so we're not going to give up. We're going to continue to push for more. And so I don't think it's all been even spent yet, but Tina could come up and give us an update if we need.
Do you need a friend to call? Anybody here in the room looking back?
Okay, we're all right.
All right. Thank you. Regent Kenyanya.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Interim President, Senior Vice President, for the presentation and the work and attention to the topic. Some thoughts and comments. You mentioned, Pioneer, those turnstiles. The other good thing with them is they're inside, and it doesn't feel like it now, but at certain times, the cold is a genuine safety concern, right? So at least a student can get inside and then fumble for their U card and whatnot. So I think that's a great model. Obviously, the moment has required for most of our safety attention to be
on this campus. But, I was glad to hear in your report some of the perimeter assessments you talked about happening across the system, the U-card access upgrades. Actually, the other week when I visited Chancellor Carroll at Rochester and she wanted to show me the new dining center, she couldn't get in, with her new card, and we had to go grab another one. I suppose she's not a student, so, but, glad that attention is being paid. You talked about the student surveys and conversation with students and UMPD. I'm glad that that's happening again. And I think it's an opportunity to kind of revisit some of our MSAFE work. I think, when we first got that report, there was a lot of things that, okay, we implemented right away. And then some others that we said, okay, we're going to continue these conversations and revisit. And it kind of seems like those are the kind of conversations we're reigniting. So happy to hear about that. With relation to campus adjacent neighborhoods such as Dinkytown and other areas, the responsiveness we're doing, the infrastructure upgrades, that's all important. That's what we have to do now. I do think we should also continue, and I'm sure you and your team and the Chiefs team have started thinking about a more long-term vision on our role in those neighborhoods that aren't necessarily campus, but how we can positively influence, right? As the neighborhood associations are meeting, the business associations, as developers are coming in and out, building housing just about every other day, it sounds like. What's our role? I think, was it earlier this year that we acquired that property in Dinkytown? That was I was really happy to see that development because that's kind of a flag marker that, okay, we're there too. And I think we don't have anything there yet, but that's still being planned about. But that was a positive development. And I think future conversations should kind of be more towards that side. And, okay, how can we long-term play a role, and I'm sure we already do, but play a more prominent role in those neighborhoods and in terms of positively influencing them.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Regent Wheeler?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, sorry for the disruption in my musical interlude here. But I wanted to say, first of all, it was validated, as others have said, with our visit with the students at Pioneer Hall. Thank you so much for seeking the student perspective, which of course is the one. I will say that many of lots of things were visible to them. They mentioned the blue lights. They mentioned the increased police presence. They mentioned the turnstile gates. In fact, one of them said that they really feel safe on campus. Like they think it shouldn't be the Twin Cities, it should be the Tri-Cities, because they feel safety here. And they realize that being in an urban environment creates some other challenges with the population density and the like. So that was realistic. The one thing, so out of the hundreds things you're doing besides disrupting you with my music, I will say the one thing that they did mention which was enhanced, and it's probably come up to you in the perceptions, was the Gopher chauffeur service that they really appreciate, but the wait times are quite long, and the hours have been diminished. So that was one thing that we can always get better, even with the hundreds of things that are being done, which they appreciate. But that was the one thing that was brought up.
I heard this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Thank you, Regent. And, I think it's hard to get people to work. In fact, if any regents wanted to volunteer to do that on weekends, the hours are tough to get people to work, and the student workforce is tougher and tougher to tap into. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
We'll look at that.
Regent Talrabi.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. Thank you, SVP Franz, for just keeping us updated. I know that in light of recent events, there's even more concern about this. I'm curious as we have conversations with the city about areas outside, because I think I hear the same sentiment that people feel quite safer on campus, but in some of the neighboring the neighborhoods and things like that where there's real challenges and things. I'm curious what our thought and our take is on prevention efforts. Of course, we can keep responding to the violence when it happens and try to kind of do all those things, but is there anything that we are thinking about on the prevention side? Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Regent Talrabi, yes. I think prevention weighs heavily on us because you can do what you can to respond to those events. And but we've seen, these things continue, not obviously just here in our location, but in different parts of the city of Minneapolis and around the country. We see some of the, we believe that we need to continue to figure out how to be engaged with community leaders that can help provide opportunities, especially for younger folks, to be engaged in activities that offer a different alternative than what they choose. And that's a really hard thing to do. And it's not only in the schools, but in the community centers. We have to have consequences for what happens. We understand that, but we also need to provide better pathways, more opportunities for engagement. And so we think that's one of the most significant long-term solutions here, is working with existing community neighborhoods and partnerships and centers to get especially young people engaged in other fruitful, productive activities. I know that's kind of vague, but...
Yeah.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I was just reading an article about Somali fathers working with young people, and I think that approach of really trying to understand who our potential community partners could be in some of those prevention efforts would be really worthy of our time. Yeah.
One of the things, Madam Chair and Regent Robbie, one of the things we did this last summer was try to help to support more community centers around the city of Minneapolis for longer hours, maybe sponsoring kind of tournaments or matches, or athletic matches, trying to figure out other ways that we can have an outreach to the city. But the University of Minnesota can't do all that on our own.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Last speaker will be Regent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, and I want to thank you for the comments you made earlier around emphasizing how we've been doing this monthly. I've been a supporter of that for a while, and it pushed us to discuss safety more in the full board meetings, and we've been doing that. So I want to thank board leadership and others who've made that possible. A couple things. One, I think something that I've talked to Tina about that I think would be an opportunity for us is the I believe it's called the community service station model for Dinkytown that Councilmember Rainville has talked about. A substation is used, but I think a substation is actually something technically different. But
it is.
Thank you. So I'm going to go with community service station, and think that would be a great opportunity for our block by block personnel, other folks. There's a whole discussion there, but I want to highlight that as an opportunity. A little bit to what Regent Hipsch was talking about, we definitely have some increased opportunities in crime prevention by environmental design when talking about lighting. The last two things briefly, I know there was a little bit of redistricting done within the Minneapolis ward map, so if I'm not mistaken, that means we'll have a different council member for Dinkytown coming up, and I know that provides opportunities and different chances to do new relationship building, and then that can often change the course or influence initiatives that we may have been working on with our former council member in Ward 3 there. So I want to emphasize that. And then the last thing is just thinking about root causes, right? I think we are doing all the right things that have made a whole bunch of strides in lighting, in security infrastructure, really seconding everything you just talked about, right, in terms of our initiatives. But I think, having the university be engaged in conversations with Hennepin County and other entities to look at things like prosecution strategies and other root causes are conversations that I'm hoping that we will partake in and think about in terms of what's happening to folks who commit and do things on our campus and being part of that broader conversation. So thank you very much for the work.
All right, well, thank you very much for this, as I said, very robust update and the questions and comments by my colleagues. At this time, I will invite Executive Director Steves and Kristen Overby, Communications and Engagement Manager, to provide an update on the board's virtual forum pilot program. Executive Director Steves, if you could start us off.
Madam Chair and members of the board, we're delighted to offer a very brief, we know that we understand the time that the clock is showing, so we're going to be very brief with this, but this is just a brief interim update on the board's virtual forum. And you may recall this being kind of this bolt-on addition to the engagement work that the board already does. So there's a number of ways that we've talked about in the past that the board engages with members of the university community, with those outside the university community, and this virtual forum being an addition to that. And so we're going to today just walk through a little bit about how that's been going, what we've learned so far, and we're only partway through the pilot, and so we're going to be continuing that in coming months. The one thing I'll just mention again with this is that even though we've only, I think, received one video comment and some audio comments and a bunch of written comments, we still believe that we are the only board offering this kind of multi-lane, 24/7, anywhere in the world kind of comment ability. And so we're pretty excited about that. And with that, I'll let Krista Overby take it from there.
Krista Overby.
Madam Chair, members of the board, to continue, we'll just review the timeline that's led us to this interim report. The Governance and Policy Committee discussed alternatives to increase engagement and accountability throughout the fall of 2022. And in February 2023, the board acted to direct the Office of the Board of Regents to implement the proposed public comment portal pilot program. And from March through August, the portal was developed and tested. In September, the pilot launched under the name The Board's Virtual Forum. For its first meeting, the pilot's been active September, October, and now for its third meeting in December. In the spring, it will, after being live for 5 full meetings, the virtual forum will be evaluated and a recommendation for its future will be reviewed. While developing the back end of the virtual forum, the board office took into consideration several guiding principles. The first being to effectively support the board in building trust and demonstrating accountability. The second being recognizing that public engagement practices evolve over time and require a custom fit to meet the needs of today. And the third being that we need to leverage technology to aid in advancing innovative access and inclusive engagement across the university community. As you've seen in the docket materials, the virtual forum comment submissions can be categorized. This chart here shows that the September and October comments submissions by category, notably the golden presidential search and transition category being the largest, followed by other in maroon, and then public safety related comments in the green color. And then additionally, the board office reviewed the comments in a week-over-week time horizon by category. As seen in this graph, the maroon stars denote when system-wide messages promoting the virtual forum were sent to all faculty, staff, and students. And those 2 gold circles denote the board's regularly scheduled meetings. Since we're about halfway through the pilot, we're beginning to notice a few of the trends in submissions. And as you can see, following those system-wide messages and then roughly around the board meetings, there are a few spikes in engagement with the virtual forum. And at the end of the pilot, we anticipate that more robust data analysis will be prepared and reviewed. Finally, I'd like to share a little bit about how the submissions are prepared before they are put in the docket. The board partners with our colleagues in university services, university survey and assessment services to download the input from the portal, categorize the responses into folders, and then share them. Submissions are capped off at the 10 a.m. on the Friday before a regularly scheduled board meeting, and then the board staff will review the audio, video, written comments to ensure compliance with the pilot's guidelines. And this includes any redaction of anonymous comments or non-public information. And the board does still receive access to any and all submissions through the forum, but those non-public or anonymous, non-guideline compliant submissions are redacted from the public-facing docket. And in response to feedback from a few regents, we have incorporated a supplemental download. And this download captures comments received from that 10 a.m. window, the Friday before a meeting, up until 10 a.m. on Wednesday before our Thursday-Friday meeting cadence. The process was added in advance of the December board meeting, and as you've seen, it included 2 additional comments, none of them which were related to the docket materials directly. And this supplemental input will be reconciled in the public-facing docket following the meeting, along with any other slide updates or other supplemental materials. And with that, Mr. Steves and I will stand for any questions.
All right, any questions or discussion at this time, recognizing that a very fulsome evaluation will be taking place after we get through at least 5 of our meetings here, so starting this spring. Any comments? Yes, Regent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, and I want to thank the Office of the Board of Regents, and I wrote this down to get it right, the University Survey and Assessment Services, and all other partners involved in the design and implementation of the virtual form pilot program. I think referring directly to the guiding principles that were just outlined by Ms. Overby and OBR on the onset of the pilot, I think it's clear without question that our virtual form pilot program is meeting the guiding principles, which I was going to repeat, but I'm not going to in the interest of time. And I think that the guided principles that were cited are very well reflected in the way that our innovative virtual pilot program has rolled out has been utilized by members of the university community. And I think, yes, we're doing the full evaluation at one of the spring meetings, but I would say, just personally, barring any unanticipated curveballs between now and the end of the pilot, I would imagine that I'm going to be supportive of continuing it because to what Mr. Steves just said, we are clearly leading in this space, and I think it's something that we should continue doing moving forward, barring, again, things that I don't know about, logistics, that type of thing. The one thing I did want to comment on today, and I'd written way more about this, but I'm trying to summarize in order to be brief, is I think an opportunity that was top of mind coming into this, but ironically is a little bit more top of mind given what I would characterize as the unexpected engagement opportunity we had this morning, which I think, is getting at the importance of having an in-person opportunity as a critical function that I think in consultation with this, that our board should look at embracing moving forward. There's many reasons, there's many nuances, aspects of expression, impact, and other dynamics that I believe are uniquely expressed through in-person communication. Many other important reasons. I think, for instance, as mentioned by Interim President Ettinger, I presume that Representative Rarick, who's here today, could share countless examples of the valuable public testimony from the thousands of hours she's listened to in her role as a legislator. The other thing I'll add is that in our recent experience on the Presidential Search Advisory Committee, we did a bunch of listening sessions to influence the position profile. And those, yes, a lot of the information was influencing the position profile, but I think some, I have a whole separate page of notes that's about kind of more general stuff that I think was impactful to our role as regents. And that opportunity was really valuable. And we had some other opportunities outside of those formal listening sessions as well. And so, I view the dynamic that I'm talking about and that opportunity that I don't think we're necessarily embracing, not as an either or to doing the virtual pilot program, but as a both and opportunity. I think, there's some low-hanging fruit here that we can scoop up to look at an implementation of a regular occurring opportunity for members of the public to address the board in a face-to-face format. It's something, the topic, the request is something I've heard extensive feedback on from members of the legislature from both sides of the aisle, university community members, members of the public. It's something that I've clearly been interested in before and sort of adjusted my approach on. I'm given deference and respect to the pilot program that we have underway. And again, I think it's what I've come to determine based on participating in the pilot program is something that I think we can do both of at the same time and have opportunities to do. So in that spirit, I do have a motion that I wanted to bring forward today for consideration, and I can say 2 more sentences about it if it's seconded, and then hear the discussion. But my motion today would be to direct the Office of the Board of Regents, in consultation with members of the board and other relevant stakeholders, to develop a framework and implementation plan for in-person public comment to be scheduled in alignment with our regularly scheduled board meeting weeks beginning February 2024. And I'll leave it there, and then I'll have one more thing to say if it's seconded.
Second.
Thank you.
So what do I do with that?
It's been seconded.
It has been seconded. I've been informed by Executive Director Steves that a motion here that has not been noticed is not the appropriate vehicle for you to bring the motion, that if you want to bring it up when we get to new business and bring up the motion at that time, we can then entertain the motion at that time in the second and where we go with it.
Right, I was trying to be efficient. I apologize, trying to loop it to an agenda item, but I will wait. Thank you.
All right, so we.
And now you have a preview. There you go. So we'll wait for new business.
All right. Regent Verheulen?
Thanks. I actually have a specific question. And so as we can see from this, there have been a number of comments related to the presidential search that have been received through the portal that are available publicly, but are those getting funneled to the presidential search committee? And I believe the answer is yes, but I just want to make sure, purpose of record, those are making their way.
Is the answer yes?
Yes.
All right. Anything further, Regent Verheulen?
No, thank you.
All right. Then any other discussion on this particular topic? All right, then we will move to the next item, which brings us to our committee business. Let's begin first with the report of the Audit and Compliance Committee. Regent Farnsworth, if you would please share your report with us.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The report of the Audit and Compliance Committee includes 2 items this month. All items were unanimously recommended by the committee for approval by the board. These items include the following. 1, the appointment of Clifton Larson Allen LLP as the external auditor for the university. And 2, the consent report, which included the purchase of services provided by an external audit firm exceeding $100,000.
Is there a motion that you wish to make with respect to these 2 action items by the Audit and Compliance Committee?
There most certainly is. I move approval of these items.
All right.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from the Vice Chair. All right. Any discussion on these 2 items? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is carried. And Regent Farnsworth, any further committee business?
Yes, briefly, the committee discussed 2 items. First, the university current external auditor, Deloitte, provided the committee with the external auditor report and the results of the fiscal year 2023 financial statement audit. I'm pleased to report that the financial audit had no material findings, which is good. The committee then discussed the institutional compliance report and the institutional conflict of interest report presented by Chief Compliance Officer Boyd Coomer. The item gave us a valuable look into the work being done to monitor and enhance the university's culture of compliance, in addition to important information items related to conflict of interest matters. As always, I want to thank Chief Auditor Galswick for his work and in partnership. And thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Regent Farnsworth. Next, we will receive the reports of Mission Fulfillment and the Finance and Operations Committee. Their reports will note that the items that the committees approved on behalf of the board will start first with the Mission Fulfillment Committee. Regent Ruth Johnson, if you could provide us with your report.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The Mission Fulfillment Committee approved 2 action items this month. First, amendments to the Board of Regents policy equity, diversity, equal opportunity, and affirmative action as amended by the committee. And secondly, then the consent report, which includes academic program changes, conferral of tenure, human fetal tissue research report to the Minnesota legislature, and finally, the Wiseman Art Museum collection policy. There were no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
All right, then moving on to the Finance and Operations Committee. Regent Hipsch, your report, please.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The Finance and Operations Committee unanimously approved 2 items on behalf of the board this month. Those items are the financial plan for the academic affiliation agreement and the consent report, which concluded 8 purchases of goods and services over $1 million, amendments to 3 of the defined contribution retirement plans, an off-cycle tuition rate change for the Masters of Science in Finance program for the Carlson School of Management, Twin Cities campus, 1 real estate purchase, and 4 schematic designs. There were no other action items approved this month. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Regent Hipsch. For the Governance and Policy Committee, Regent Verheulen, your report, please.
Thanks, Chair Mayron. The Governance and Policy Committee did not consider any action items this month. The committee took up 3 discussion items. For all 3 items, I would encourage those regents who are not on the committee to review the docket, and please provide any input you have to myself or OBR before our February meeting. The first discussion provided the committee with an overview of approval thresholds as defined in the Board of Regents policy, reservation, and delegation of authority. The policy is currently under comprehensive review, and this discussion continues a 4-part series to consider any changes the board may wish to make. The agenda item outlined benchmark data for those areas of policy that have approval thresholds and the committee. The next conversation will take place at the February meeting and will include a review of proposed changes for potential action in June. The second item continued our discussion of the board's committee structure. This discussion focused on our current committee structure and the use of standing versus special committees, and omnibus versus committees of 6 or less. Committee members provided input on our current committee structure, looked at peer data, and gave feedback on portfolios and potential gaps that could inform a restructuring of board committees. The final agenda item was a discussion on how the board may handle potential institutional conflicts of interest involving the president. The committee heard an overview of the current process and offered input on a potential new process that would create an as-needed presidential conflict review panel. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Now turning to our special committees, we'll start with the Special Committee on Academic Health. Regent Wheeler, would you like to share your report?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Mayron. Special Committee on Academic Health considered 1 action item this month, voted unanimously to recommend the approval on the resolution related to the 1997 Academic Affiliation Agreement with Fairview Health Services. The resolution delegates authority to Interim President Ettinger to issue the university's notice of intent not to renew the affiliation agreement. While providing that notice is contractually required formality, we want to emphasize that the university also views the notice as an affirmation of a commitment to work with Fairview to redesign the joint public health mission and to build a better future for Minnesota's public health. Chair Mayron, I move approval of the resolution related to the 1997 affiliation agreement with Fairview Health Services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Regent Wheeler, any other committee business?
Yes, briefly, in addition to the action item, the special committee heard an update on the governor's task force on academic health at the university. Task force has met 4 times since October and has 2 additional meetings planned for this month and next month. Task force will submit its recommendations to the governor by January 15th, 2024. Vice President Toller outlined the university's vision for the academic health system, which was presented to the task force earlier this week. Then we had a really great conversation with Task Force Chair Jan Malcolm, hearing her thoughts on the task force and the direction that they are going. We had then time for members in the special committee to provide input to her for the task force consideration. The special committee will continue to watch the work of the task force and will be eager to see their final report. Thank you very much, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And finally, the Special Committee on University Relations, Regents Talrabi, your report, please.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. The Special Committee on University Relations did not consider any action items this month. Our third meeting as a special committee started with a discussion on the fall legislative higher education hearings with Executive Director Lopez Frenzen. For our second item, Executive Director Lopez Frenzen provided an update on board engagement during the 2024 legislative session. And following on that, mark your calendars for February 22nd for our U Day at the Capitol. And finally, the committee learned about the current marketing efforts related to recruitment and enrollment across the system. Thank you, Chair Mayron. That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you very much, Regent Talrabi. That concludes our committee reports and brings us to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? Hearing none, is there any new business to come before the board? Yes, Regent Farnsworth.
Thank you, Chair Mayron, and my apologies for the parliamentary blunder earlier.
We're learning, all of us are learning.
Yes, we are.
I did yesterday. Yep.
So I will just restate the motion and I'm prepared to speak to it. My motion today would be to direct the Office of the Board of Regents in consultation with members of the board and other relevant stakeholders to develop a framework and implementation plan for an in-person public comment period to be scheduled in alignment with our regularly scheduled board meeting weeks beginning February 2024.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Yes, Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. I support this motion, and I've had extensive experience with what I would call what happened this morning in action. And if we were able to have an organized way of people to be able to come and address issues to us. The thing that I see missing is that they did their action, but that we weren't able to hear what their specific concern was. And I will reiterate with my theme that I was professing earlier, when people don't feel like they're being heard, despite the many listening sessions that we have done, with Interim President Ettinger, I thank you for that. When people don't feel like they're being heard, that's what motivates them to do what I call actions. And so by providing an in-person, whether it be 20 minutes or whatever, and well ahead of time and get to know, we can have a strategic way of being inclusive and being able to get to, like I said, what I miss in that action is they have a concern. And I think Regent Gully went out and talked to them, and it was kind of like, yeah, okay, that would be nice to know so that we could address it. So that's my biggest point, is that not giving people the opportunity. They will find an opportunity, but we need understanding of their issues too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regent Davenport.
Thank you, Chair Mayron. I have a question.
Sure.
And it's around how you're using the word a framework. I don't have any words. Framework to implement. Is that framework, or must it be formal testimony style? Is I think what you said in your words, or could it be a variety of input options, including what we had yesterday, which I thought was very valuable, meeting with certain groups. So my preference would be, and I'm not disagreeing with the input because I think that is important, for framework to be more defined in terms of maybe several different mechanisms versus a regular 3 minutes to speak kind of format. And get what I'm asking?
All right, Regent Farnsworth, you want to take on Regent Davenport's question?
I don't want to take her on. I just want to answer.
No, answer.
Thank you, Regent Davenport. To be honest, the language in this resolution or in this motion is vague because I think there are different opportunities for how this could look like. My major concern or desired end result is for members of the public, members of the community to know the Board of Regents is meeting this many times per year. There's going to be an opportunity during our two-day meetings to be able to speak in person to the board, and here's how it works. I think OBR does a fantastic job of organizing these different engagement sessions for us. That's part of my both and. I want those to continue. I want the portal program to continue, but I think that there is a way to do this. And again, I left it vague, so I didn't put in 30 minutes, and then we have a discussion about whether 30 minutes is long enough or whatever. I just want us, starting in February and then going forward, to have a way for the public knows that there's going to be an equitable and inclusive opportunity to interact with the board when we're having meetings on campus. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, Regent Davenport.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I prefer the vagueness of that because I think there are a number of options. Then I would ask, must they come to us in February? Could they come to us by June? Or I don't know what the next, so a later date. I think February is pushing it.
And before you answer that question, it seems to me that you're asking that this be implemented, not only developed and implemented in time for the February board meeting, which would be before OBR is even, according to your motion, had an opportunity to develop a framework for for our board to consider. So and this is in tandem with Regent Davenport's question is your motion embedded within the motion that by the February meeting, we would have in place and a forum or an opportunity for members of the university community to provide verbal input in person at the February board meeting, which is our next board meeting.
Yeah, that was what was in my motion. I hear the concern about, I think what you're getting at is timeline around consultation process and then implementation. I personally think this would be fairly easy to implement. I mean, I have somewhat of a vision, but I'm not the only, I'm one of 12, and I believe in consultation and in collaboration. I feel like, I've been working on this for a while, multiple years now. I think it would be fairly easy to implement an in-person opportunity, whether that was what it may look like traditionally first, and then that changes. So I'm open to listening to more conversation about that, but that is the way that the motion stands at the moment.
All right, Regent Kenyanya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Regent Farnsworth. I'm generally supportive, as I have been in the past when this has come up, but Regent Davenport, as she often does, piqued my interest. You made some excellent observations, different formats, and it could be like every meeting 20-30 minute open reception with the community, because I do think yesterday was very productive. When I raised my hand, it was initially about February as well. I was going to ask questions about that, and I think personally for me, I'm also particularly sensitive about the board staff right now because of the search. Firsthand the kind of undertaking that is, and we all know the kind of commitment they have around that, and with the holidays, you're right. In theory, it is simple and could be implemented by February. But then, I think the point the chair was getting to, we wouldn't formally consult as a board and then act as a board on what we're actually going to implement. So I think, whatever the date is or the month, March is usually our retreat one, so that might not make sense, but whatever. Maybe later in the spring might make more sense, but generally supportive.
Let's see, Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've
chatted with Regent Farnsworth on this, and in general, I think it's a good idea. But just wanted to, we've been chatting a lot lately about regular order and taking things as we've kind of laid them out. So I think what we've done is laid out a pilot project that goes until June, at which time we'll evaluate, how we're taking in information. I think it's, that can be done in a uniform way. I think it would take the staff a little while to come up with some procedural things that we could all agree on. And I would just add a friendly amendment to a certain extent that this would go to the Government Policy Committee for consideration. And, I would like to see it done as quickly as we can, keeping in mind that we've got this other pilot project going on right now. And so putting it back into the committee to discuss and for the staff to have input and to spend some time developing it, because I could see doing it in such a way where people are provided with 3-minute increments. They'd have to be members of official university entity representing other people. There's a whole bunch of ideas that could be brought forward as to who can speak. Anyway, I just I agree with Regent Farnsworth that this is something that should be done. I just would like to see it developed in regular order.
So let me see, you're offering a friendly amendment, which would, and I may be embellishing on it, so correct me if I'm wrong as I try to repeat it back, that would defer this work until we get the results back of the pilot program. And then at that point, once we've had the results and the board has been able to evaluate the pilot program with the virtual form, at that point, then we would send it back to governance to then presumably to entertain the motion that is now being brought by Regent Farnsworth, which is now to expand our ability to obtain input from our constituencies to include in-person attendance at a board meeting. And so that in terms of developing the orderly fashion, it would wait till the pilot project is done, then have it go back into governance to look at whether that is adequate, or do we still wish to enhance it or embellish it or add on to it through the in-person attendance. And so that would become part of what the governance and policy work and then their recommendation would address not only what came out of the virtual program, but also the very important motion that Regent Farnsworth is making. I don't know that I adequately clarified it or made it worse, but that was the gist. Executive Director Steves.
Madam Chair, just a procedural clarification. Number one, there are no such things as friendly amendments, but number two, number two, I think that the motion is a separate motion to refer this matter to the Governance and Policy Committee with a timeline attached to it. And that can be a separate motion that then is seconded and is debatable.
You're right. This is a separate motion. Would you like to
make that motion?
I would.
All right.
I'll second it, but can I speak to it?
Yes. All right. So we have a motion to send this into governance and to address that issue through the Governance and Policy Committee. And there was a second to that motion. Regent Verheugen.
So we're flying a little blind here because I don't have the exact language in front of me on what's being moved. But the way I'm hearing it is it's presupposing that we must add a public interaction or a public interface opportunity in connection with board meetings. And I would just like to say this is probably the third or fourth time this has come up in the last 12 months, and the motion has failed each time for different reasons. I have no objection to a continued discussion about whether such an opportunity is or should be available, coming back to governance and policy again, which we spent last year doing. But I would not support a motion to come to governance and policy or not that presupposes that this board must have a face-to-face public, however it's been worded. Because I think we already have a lot of those. We already have a lot of opportunities for people to interact with us, whether it's a formal setting or not. And if this, you referred to this morning, instead of one disruption, would it be multiple? At what point does our chair at what point does our chair have to step in and say, you need to stop, that's crossed the line? You know, it's putting us in a very interesting position on some of those decisions, whereas we are able to right now through the portal take in all of the feedback, not interrupted, not censored for our purposes. Ms. Overby explained to us that we get everything that's submitted to the portal, that nothing is filtered from us as the board. So we get all of that information. And so there's no one making a decision as to when someone who's before us needs to stop if they've crossed a line going from free speech into something else, any of those pieces. It also gives us an opportunity to properly respond to any allegations, any concerns. Ms. Regent Gully brought up one yesterday that you were able to address in a confidential way with Vice President Hortzman to say, this came to me, how should we address it? And being able to do that, whereas if someone sat here and accused someone else of something, that's out in the open forum. And that person who's being accused is not able to respond to that. And so I wouldn't support a motion at this point in time that presupposes we need to have that public open microphone opportunity. If this board wants to send back to governance and policy another discussion about whether such an opportunity is appropriate, I wouldn't object to it.
Any further comments? Yes, Regent.
Can I just refine this then? And I guess this is a singular motion then, that this goes back to the after the pilot project that's currently going on is done, that this issue goes back to the Government Policy Committee for study and consideration, and some thought as to how, and if and how a forum of some kind can be created where we could have live witnesses, and if that can be created in a orderly and practical manner.
I will just, well, why don't I hear from Regent Farnsworth, and then I will weigh in. Oh, and
I will second that.
There's a comment over here too.
Okay, I've got Regent Hips, I have Regent Farnsworth. We haven't heard from Regent Hips. Let's do that.
Okay. So,
you Robbie.
I tend to agree with Regent Verhalen. I'm not opposed to the amendment either. As a former county commissioner for a dozen years, we were involved in hundreds of input in public meetings, and they really do work well around a specific issue that you have. So if you're talking about a certain policy you're doing or a road ditch or whatever, you get all the people in the room and they testify on that, and it's really a good deal. But I had concerns about this last time, and that's why we developed the portal, mainly because we're a big state, and I would love to have listening sessions all around the state once a year, that people can come to us in their area. But to force everybody from the state of Minnesota to come down here for a 3-minute session and they have to drive 3 hours one way from my hometown, I don't think we're going to get that input. So now the input we're going to get is going to be very metro oriented, and I don't think that's fair to everybody else in the state. So that's why I'm opposed to it. I like the portal because it keeps everyone fair across the whole state. So
Before I hear from Regent Farnsworth, and I know that Regent Talrabi wanted to speak to this, I will just share my own view. I'm in support of the amendment. It's what we contemplated from the very beginning when we created the virtual pilot program, which was this orderly analysis of what we should be doing to make sure we are getting input and creating avenues for input from all of our constituencies. And at that time, my memory is that we said, first step, and this was in the context of Regent Farnsworth also at that time, requesting, making a motion similar to the one he's making now, which is let's add an in-person component for people to give feedback during our board meetings. We said, let's do this in an orderly fashion. Let's do the pilot program first, get our input, see if it's meeting the needs that we think that we need, but also that the communities out there need statewide. Evaluate that, then we can take, once we know what we've learned from that process, then we can decide if there's more needed and what that more should look like. And so I, for one, support the amendment by Regent Johnson, Tad Johnson, so that we can continue in that orderly development of what is the right way to gain input from all of our different constituencies. We all understand the need for it, but we may have different ideas about how to accomplish it. And I think we should finish the work we've done with the virtual forum and then take on the next task, which I think is appropriately housed with governance and policy to address, is this adequate or do we need more, and what does the more look like? So I would encourage people to vote in favor of Regent Tad Johnson's amendment to basically send this back into governance and policy after the virtual forum evaluation is completed. With that, we can have more discussion on this. We also have another very important topic that touches on the university as well, that I want to make sure we get to. We have commitments by other people to head over to the legislature, et cetera. So Regent Farnsworth, if you want to have your final say, and we can take up the amendments.
Point of order.
Yes.
I heard two motions. I didn't hear Regent Johnson's as an amendment. And so I'm confused. What order we go in?
Regents, or I just elevated you, or maybe I demoted you. Director Steve.
You can just say, hey, you. Madam Chair and members of the board, the Tad Johnson motion is the motion before you right now. You'll need to dispense with that motion, and then you can, then either that passes and that concludes it, or if it does not pass, then you would go back to the prior motion, the Farnsworth motion.
Thank you.
All right, so are we prepared then at this time to, Regent Farnsworth, before we vote on the Tad Johnson motion? That makes it easier on how to identify this.
Yes, thank you, Chair Mayron. One, I would like to request a roll call on Regent Tad Johnson's referral motion, if you will. And then two, just say, in the interest of time, there's a lot we could dive into here based on response, and I do really value carefully listening to the feedback and perspectives of colleagues. I understand that this similar motion has been made in the past. As I mentioned in my beginning comments, I don't believe that this is usurping or interrupting the pilot program. I think this is something different. It's clear that there's some differences of opinion on here. I think pretty stark differences of opinion on what, the dynamics and features around public comment and the importance of that. I am not on the Governance and Policy Committee anymore, so I hope that the folks that are would be amenable to input and conversation from those members who are not on the committee. Yes, this does feel, this feels familiar for other people. This feels very familiar to me, and just trying to fix something here that I think would be easy for us to fix prior to the legislative session. So, and a whole bunch of other reasons, but thank you.
All right, we will do a roll call vote on the Tad Johnson motion.
On the Regent Tad Johnson motion to refer the matter to the Governance and Policy Committee, Regent Davenport.
Yes.
Regent Davenport votes yes. Regent Farnsworth.
No.
Regent Farnsworth votes no. Regent Gully.
No.
Regent Gully votes no. Regent Hipsch.
Yes.
Regent Hipsch votes yes. Regent Ruth Johnson.
Yes.
Regent Ruth Johnson votes yes. Regent Tad Johnson.
Yes.
Regent Tad Johnson votes yes. Regent Kenyanya.
Yes.
Regent Kenyanya votes yes. Regent Tauyarabe.
Yes.
Regent Tauyarabe votes yes. Regent Turner.
No.
Regent Turner votes no. Regent Verhalen.
Yes.
Regent Verhalen votes yes. Regent Wheeler.
Yes.
Regent Wheeler votes yes. Chair Mayron.
Yes.
Chair Mayron votes yes.
The motion, the Tad Johnson motion is approved 9-3. And so that will end that new business item. This matter will be then deferred and referred to the Governance Committee. Any other new business on behalf of any of our regents here? Hearing none, that concludes the board, this portion of the board meeting. So let me just ask a point of order here of Director Steves. Do you want to take up the motion at this point, and then we'll take a short break? So we can clear it. Okay, so what we're going to do at this time is we're going to consider a resolution to close the rest of the meeting in order to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege with counsel. After we address that resolution, assuming it passes, then we will take a short break. And then we will return to this, the closed meeting to continue that portion of the meeting. All right, Regent Steves, if you could see, I demoted you again. Director Steves, if you would read the resolution, please.
Madam Chair, the resolution reads as follows. Regents of the University of Minnesota resolution to conduct non-public meeting of the Board of Regents to discuss attorney-client privileged matters. Whereas based on advice of the General Counsel, the Board of Regents have balanced the purposes served by the open meeting law and by the attorney-client privilege and determined that there is a need for absolute confidentiality to discuss litigation strategy, in particular matters involving the University of Minnesota. Now, therefore, be it resolved that in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D.01 Subdivision 3 and 13D.05 Subdivision 3B, a non-public meeting of the Board of Regents be held on Friday, December 23rd, or December 8th, 2023, in the boardroom, 600 McNamara Alumni Center, for the purpose of an attorney-client privilege discussion of litigation relating to the data security incident, including the following: Lindsay v. University of Minnesota, Eckel v. University of Minnesota, Shackelford v. University of Minnesota, Dittburner versus University of Minnesota, Martin versus University of Minnesota, Severson versus University of Minnesota, Foster v. University of Minnesota, and Chaitlin v. University of Minnesota.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Yeah, need a motion.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, so moved in this motion. Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. We will now take a very short recess to end the live stream and allow those in the boardroom to leave. We will stand recessed and return here within 5 minutes. Thank you.